And we spent some time explaining under a caption, electioneering is back at its best and its worst. Looking at how the Unity Labour Party operates in practice. But the party has recently held another big bash when it convened its annual convention. And has become the norm the party's leadership seized the opportunity to pat itself on the back by recounting what it perceives as its successes. Little or no attention was paid to its shortcomings. You see, because we don't believe that our delegates supposed to tell us we're doing anything wrong. So when political parties, left, right, and center, are having their conventions, they really don't engage in any serious critical analysis. That you do behind closed doors, if you do it at all. The conventions are really institutions that have been created to pat yourself on the back. And that's what you have been seeing for the past several years. That is why, you remember when they had the convention in Maracua? In the building right next to the bridge. One of the party leaders got up and says, we must not only just own the campaign, we must own the jobs too. In other words, ain't nobody else who not in this party who really supposed to live comfortably in the country. That's what it translates to. Are we time now? Let the others starve. They want to live comfortably, come join the party. Yeah? That's why we had people being able to tell you that they have seen people gather so much galvanized steel, lumber, and cement as handouts because of their party loyalty, because of their vote, that they were able to sell it. Some, the cement got hard on them, unable to be used. But it's all right, because we must own the jobs too. How do you sit down as a child of the education revolution and hear this rubbish being spouted by one of your leaders, that we, this merry band of followers of one particular party, should own the jobs in the country? How do you sit there and accept that as a mode of operation for a party that is desirous of seeing the country develop? They're incongruous. They're contradictory. We cannot only believe that the people who support us, who join the party and jump up and say, yay, yay, are the only people capable of making a meaningful contribution to the well-being of a nation. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. There's something ethically wrong with that. We can hear them, the politicians, talk about the importance of our society and development, the importance of having strong values, etc. But these days, they drop morality out of it. So none of our politicians now are anxious to talk about morality. That's a no-no. You see, because if you start talking about morality, you have to start talking about immorality. And since there's a pervasive display now of immorality amongst our politicians, they talk about the family only in garbled terms, because several of them appear to be hell-bent on destroying families. That's our reality, but we've come to accept it in this society. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. But how do you sit and claim that we have had an education revolution? Well, maybe the education revolution was designed to create just that type of thinking. Because now more than ever before, we are thriving on immorality. We are doing our best to destroy fundamental values. At this year's convention, with general elections pending, and with the party's popularity waning, out of people's share ennui with the same old, the ULP's leadership engaged in what is perhaps its latest attempt at showboating. And one only has to listen to the way they speak, because even now that we are talking about the Royal Mill Hotel, we call it figures, but that is something about the Gonzales regime, and now you're seeing it in the Sun. When you call big numbers, watch their faces, father and son. Supposed to have the same attitude now, apparently. When they call in numbers, the eye wide open, as though you've never heard these numbers before in your life. It's an expensive hotel, It's a massive thing we building. So they're telling you, they don't want you to remember that for 9.5 years while constructing an international airport, we didn't seem to remember we need accommodation for the people who we're hoping to come. So as a sort of cover-up of your incompetence in that regard, you're now doing labash. Everything must build and finish before the end of this year because you need it as a showpiece for the election campaign. Point up and say, look how I have transformed my constituency. How many of the other ministers can say that? And you wonder if the other ministers not seeing. So father brings back son. Son becomes a politician too. And once he was elected, the father had eight portfolios and the son have 7. How many the others get? So while Soboto may well have ambitions to become the country's next prime minister and leader of the party, this is what he's up against. This is what he's up against. The dynamic duo, father and son. So the son is able to say, look what I have done since I came. Because the portfolios I have, look at what I have brought. I have hotels oozing out of your ears. You never had that before. offering him an ideal platform on which to mount his bid for the party's leadership and the leadership of government. Only we could do it. Only we could do it. And even members in the party don't recognize this strategy. No, that's what they're telling us. That's what you're seeing around you. Yeah? So you hear the quotation in the Eyewitness News. And all of a sudden, this location, because that it was much more attractive, the Royal Mail will be built there. Yeah? Government, Eyewitness News, Gonzalez says that businesses began to arrive, saying that the first among them was the One St. Vincent Group, which moved from Fountain to Glen. He mentioned the Rainforest Seafoods, which will establish a seafood plant in Kaileakwa. Is Kaileakwa that developing or no? Ask Soboto what development he's able to bring out in his area. Ask Gomri what he's been able to bring out in his area by way of development. Have enough problems just trying to get the fishing co-op going. How many of the other politicians are able to talk like this in terms of what they're able to bring in their area? And talk about, we promised we will do so and so, and look, you see it happening. So even within the institution, you see the disparity. So you ask yourself, who there then is hand to mouth? Who are gold spoon and silver spoon and diamond spoon in the mouth? And who hand to mouth? Wake up, people, and apply your critical thinking skills. At the convention, one speaker after another did nothing more than engage in political chest thumping, reminding its supporters what it has done for them over the past several years in office. Yeah? But you still can't tell me whether or not, when your candidate Carlos James let off a firearm in the public, whose gun it was. And whether at the time he had any licensed firearm or any license for a firearm. It's a small society we live in, you know. Everybody knows everything. That's why when the issue of Yogi Farrell came up, everybody knew what they were talking about. Everybody knew. But that dropped like Miss Janie Fire. Suddenly, all those who were talking big, you know, the family members, but the Gonzalez side, suddenly, no more comment from Storm, no more comment from Daddy. Oh, Daddy say that somebody tells son, maintain a dignified silence. Well, I'm not quite sure how dignified the silence could have been in that kind of sordid incident. But again, it's how you spin things. In the midst of a very sordid incident, we're led to believe that somebody's maintaining a dignified silence. What was dignifiable about that particular circumstance? What was? But because you think that you could put a doctoral spin on it, we talk about a dignified silence. Politicians believe that the electorate are not the beneficiaries of any genuine education revolution. That is why they can put those kinds of spin on things, because they believe you will buy into it because you don't know any better. If they believed that there was an education revolution, he would never have made that kind of mistake. He never have attempted to dignify a sordid event by making reference to someone's dignified silence. But anything goes because you believe that you have them by the throat. That is what benevolent dictatorship does. It allows you as a member of the electorate to be made to feel that you are important. But you're only as important as your vote counts at election time. Or if you're prepared to sell your soul. Singing Sandra's song is very powerful. I maintain my dignity. I will maintain my dignity. You could keep your money. You could keep your honey. I will maintain my dignity. How many Vincentians today can say that with confidence? If that is the exchange you want to make, keep your money, keep your honey, keep your job, because I prefer to maintain my dignity. How many can say that today and say it with confidence? But when you listen to the speakers at the campaign, at the convention, interestingly, what they spouted from the political platform was less about governance of this country and more about fueling their own egos, their own political egos. Listen to some of the speeches again. It was less about genuine governance of this country. It was less about the genuine concerns of the majority of Vincentians. It was more of the same division, the political tribalism that has taken root in this country and continues to spread. One set of people deserve to live. One set of people deserve to get the jobs. One set of people supposed to thrive in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That has been the praxis, the political praxis since 2001. So it is a buddy-buddy system. One of the easily recognizable features of the ruling party's politics is its seeming eagerness to claim that it is the only political institution in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines capable of effecting any sort of change, and that all that it has done is in the nation's collective best interests. That is what characterizes the politics of the Unity Labour Party and the governance offered to this country by the ruling Unity Labour Party. It's a buddy-buddy system. It's not about genuine national development. It's remarkable, you know. We are told by the Prime Minister time and time again, when we came to office, the Milton K2 Memorial Hospital was rat infested. But he's probably saying less and less of that these days because of information reaching the public domain about the true state of that institution. But you could close your eyes and keep talking about back then, you know. You have made it more fancy. But like the hospital up in North Leeward, the only thing smart about it is the name that you call it smart. to the people living in the area ain't so smart. They have to live with that. You don't. They have to live with that. So here we have the predicament of our society. What are the political ambitions of a small group of people? And how can they convince a nation that if you come across with us, if you get your party card, if you wear red, and you respond to any line of march that we set, you set for life. You're set for life. And then somebody might tell you at the end of the day, you realize you're hand to mouth. And that is why you have to recognize that the leftovers and the ruminants of the left are so dangerous in Vincentian society. They're dangerous. They appear convinced that half a loaf is better than none at all. And so they will do whatever they have to do to be seen to be associated with what they perceive to be a left orientation. But they forgot that in 2000, when they jumped on the political bandwagon, when they were so steeped in the political opportunism as to talk about the odd thing, the Organization in Defense of Democracy, and this will withstand time. This is not for a particular period. This is not for one political party. The Organization in Defense of Democracy will be here forever. It will defend democracy in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Where are they now? Those who were talking that political garbage at the time. Where are they now? Huh? Are they not beneficiaries? Are they not singing for their supper? That is what they have become. Their ambitions thwarted by the fact that they did not become the politicians they thought they could have been and should have been. And you remember the spat that entered the public domain between those of the left who were with UPM when Mike Brown says he was moving across to MNU and to whatever Gonzales had established. You remember that public spat? Where are those who are on that left side then? They are now with ULP. That's where they are. Isn't that where they can be found? What roles are they playing in the ULP? Are they singing for supper? Are they lying prostrate at Papa's table? You be the judge. You apply your critical thinking skill and determine whether or not that is what has happened to them. How they have been prepared to give up everything in order to have the droppings from Papa's table. I can't tell you much about the left anymore. Can't tell you much about that. But you know, let us be clear. The ULP has done several things. They have done several good things. But the problem is that at the end of the day, it was not necessarily done for the collective best interest of the country. Yes, of course, we must be happy when things are done that works in people's favor. But we are also being trained to consider people's motivation for doing certain things. So you may build this and you may build that and then boast around. I'm the only person who could have done that, you know. Because you are blinded to the performances of those who went before you. That is unfair. It's more than unfair, it's dishonest. But politicians in this country seem to thrive on a stance that those who went before, I will always be the best. And then they seek, almost from the grave, to attempt to dictate the history that follows, so that their names could be etched wherever they think they ought to be, not where successive generations determine there will be. But that is what we have become as a nation. We have become political playthings of those who wield control over the parties that they either have created or they have come to accept the leadership of. That is what has become of us as a people. Because we continue to refuse to allow our education to be genuine in terms of making us whole persons, capable of applying our critical thinking skills to determine who we are, what we desire, and where we wish to go. That's what our society has become. So when you listen to the politicians at their conventions, sometimes if you apply your critical thinking skills, you're scared. Because you've come to a recognition of what they think of you. Many must be asking themselves now, am I really hand to mouth? Though all they think of me is a wash your foot and come? Have they no respect for who I am as a person? That I can have dignity, I can have worth? Do we ever think of that? Or do we just allow them to ride roughshod over us, dictating to us, because they recognize that they continue to fail us in our own education system? And that you look at the way in which they play hopscotch with your head, hopscotch with issues impacting your lives, and you're supposed to get sick of it. But we don't, because we want to live comfortably. And even if that means surrendering ourselves to Papa, even if that means giving up everything else so that you could lie prostrate at the feet of Papa, kiss his foot if you need to that extent, you've lost your very soul. You've lost your sense of being. Oh yes, you'll have a sense of purpose. You'll do anything to conquer. You'll do anything to survive. But you will have given up your very soul. You would have given up your dignity. And all that thing is Sanja would have told us about the importance of remaining dignified. Not having somebody tell us how we should be dignified. We'd have lost our dignity. But you know, dear friends, we've just started a new year. We've started an election year. And the emphasis will be on buildings, left, right, and center. We will say that we are not into economic citizenship. But at the end of the day, you ask how many of those investors would, by the end of the day, end up with citizenship papers. Keep an eye out. We're not doing citizenship by investment according to the powers that be. But at the end of the day, let us see how many of them have become Vincentian citizens with Vincentian passports. Let's see. But before we leave, we want to remind you of the fact that we won't forget the disappearance of SVG J8 VAX on the 19th of November 2006. Just as we won't allow you to forget the disappearance of Suresh Lakram, piloting J8 SXY. Those are two tragedies that should haunt us, if only because of what we here at Just Another Look recognize as inadequacies in the system. We have never been satisfied with the Cockamamie report that was published for the disappearance of J8 VAX. But we've never seen a report on the disappearance of J8 SXY. But we do know that payment was made inside of the 7 years, even without a body being seen. But some people feel comfortable with that because maybe conscience doesn't matter anymore. And speaking of conscience, does somebody have to tell others that something really should be done justice-wise about the gruesome death experienced by Patricia Bowman on the 19th of September 2008 that leaves her husband a very lonely man? Does somebody have to talk about justice here? All our big fanciful lawyers and so on, especially those who came to rally around Mark Williams when that woman was shot. They shot that woman in front of police headquarters. In front of police headquarters. And our legal fraternity didn't want it to look so bad, so they rallied around him. Where are those lawyers today in terms of rallying around Alban Bowman? Where are they? Enough said. You've been listening to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Repeated on Sundays at 9 p.m. Catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info, or check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com. Of course, check us on YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.